us. So we'll give it another second. You know, one of the interesting things I love that you know, you get a phone call and then boom, your thing ends. It's like, you know, I'm covering this great story, and it's like, you know, all of a sudden your mother calls and you're done. And it's interesting. I wonder if this is a bad time of the day, because it's like normally I get 1, 2, 3 viewers instantaneously. You know what we should do is are you going to be here at the pool conference time?
I'm leaving this afternoon.
Okay.
So.
I was about to say we could do it again. All right, so we were just interrupted by a phone call coming in. It was not my mother, and my mom's not on here, so I'm safe. I could say it if it was, but it wasn't. And I wish I had a longer arm. So we were talking about, you know, I was saying that the TV versus the tablet, or I'll say the personal device. Let's just go that way. So there's a lot of people, the millennials watch on personal devices, their iPhone, their iPad, their whatever. They're not watching on a 55-inch, 70-inch, 42-inch TV mounted on the wall. They're missing that big view experience. Although the argument is that, you know, close up, it might as well be the same experience, and it's a little more personal. But you were raising a great point that it's part of the thing is that the TVs are lacking those smart elements that the tablet has. Mm-hmm. And, you know, the truth is that, and I heard someone say yesterday about how millennials are actually watching on their tablet and tweeting on their phone and still ignoring the TV in the room. And part of it might be cable, that they don't want to have cable. It's cheaper not to have cable and to just do it over the top as the thing. OTT is over the top is the big technology statement here of what it means not to use cable. And it's funny, I was talking with a prominent lawyer, and we were talking about how it had been said that, you know, well, if you're getting your bandwidth from Comcast, but you don't have cable, that's the same thing. It's the pipe is the pipe. And what the lawyer rep said is, yes, but it's totally legally different. And that's the important thing, is that it is a different experience. If you're getting it at bandwidth only and you're getting your content that way, legally it's a different thing. All the rules change at that point. And, you know, it may seem the same to you because it's still coming down a Comcast pipe, but it's not. It's a different experience. It's a different thing. But I think it'll be interesting to see as smart TVs come online, or I think actually more importantly, the ability for me to throw from my iPad to my wall and keep it all. I'm still controlling it here in my hand, but I'm not actually watching TV.
Yeah.
I think that you know, because then my notifications are there, and if I want to react to my notification or I want to do something, I feel like I'm more in control when I'm on my own device.
One of the my favorite slogans I've heard about mobile devices is it's not that we use mobile devices, it's that we are mobile. Wherever we go, we have access to the internet, we have access to everything. It's like our personal assistant. And I totally agree with you that one of the major impediments right now in terms of like my consumption of online video is I have like this backlog of things that I find on my phone which I would love to watch, and it's not quite easy enough to get it on my TV set. There are devices that could do it, screen mirroring and the like, but you also get, even in best case scenarios, you can get encumbered by the fact that there are delays where there's buffering speeds, and you know, the pipes that broadcasts go through are just so much more reliable right now than internet services, even, where you'll get interruptions, you'll get buffering. And a couple times in different sessions at the summit so far, I've heard people describe how young people, or just internet video consumers in general, they're very cognizant of their data usage. And if they're watching a digital program that has too many commercials, they know they're paying for that data that the commercials are airing, so they'll turn it off. It's a waste of money. Well, unless it's an incredible program, like why do they need to spend that extra money for an advertiser to interrupt their viewing?
Well, I think that's fascinating. You know, you don't pay for the AT&T text message that comes your way, but so it's not in your count if you have 200 text messages. I think that bandwidth is going to be an interesting issue, even to Periscope. I mean, I fortunately have a grandfathered unlimited plan. I'm sure I'll get a nasty note that I use a lot more than I probably typically do, but technically all they could do is squeeze me for the rest of the month. They can't cut me off. But I think that this whole thing with Periscope is going to be interesting. And I think, you know, I also, my son went over his limit watching YouTube videos. You know, the family has a 4 gig the three of them, not me, have a 4 gig limit, and he went over it watching YouTube videos. So I think you're right. Now you put $1 on minutes of viewing, and it constrains a little bit.
And the data element is really interesting. I went to the Digital Hollywood Summit in New York City a few months ago, and on one of the sessions, a panelist described how the telecommunication companies, and as much as they fight, on some level there's a recognition that their business models are just changing, that data is really the holy grail right now. And he said they've already been through this experience previously with telephones, where they used to make a huge amount of money from long distance calls. And all of a sudden, over the last 20 years, that's just kind of been eliminated. People don't pay for the long distance calls. They don't want to. It's not something they can charge for. And similarly, what we're seeing with the cable bundle, where right now they're fighting tooth and nail, suing different outlets that are trying to leave the cable bundle. Eventually, that's just going to go away. They're not going to be able to constrain the audience, the user, in that fashion. But data is where everybody needs, and right now the telecommunications companies control that data, and people are using more and more of it.
Well, and you hear the cord cutters, and the big thing we've been hearing at the panel is the thin package. All right, so okay, so I don't need to now take the thick package that I'm going to pay $80 for minimum cable. That I'm going to be able to take the thin package. I heard someone yesterday talk about the fact that ESPN translates to $4.62 per month, and people are like, well, why am I spending that? Okay, I don't watch sports. Pull that out of my package. Let me take the $4.62 savings and really just go there. So I think it's interesting that we're seeing people want to diversify, although the bundling is critical to actually the content creation. If there wasn't the bundling, there isn't the revenue, it doesn't all, play together, and then there isn't money to create this content in the first place.
So what's interesting about that too is because the cable bundles are entirely reliant on ESPN in particular. Disney, which owns the ESPN, actually just made a long-term deal with the telecoms until I think 2022. That kind of locks in their rates in terms of carriage fees. But at the same point, these cable bundles are just kind of absurd, where they'll give you 1,000 channels, where the average consumer maybe watches a couple dozen max, and the rest of the channels are just kind of garbage that people don't really want to be paying for. They wouldn't be paying for if they were able to pick and choose and create their own cable bundle. And ESPN, it has such a vast viewership, and the carriage fees are so high that the telecoms are they use ESPN to justify the prices that they're charging, to say they're not price gouging, that this is what they have to pay for. But there's yet to really be options where, for a viewer who doesn't watch sports, could just eliminate ESPN, just take it out. And that kind of shows the precariousness of the business model of these packages, where if there weren't ESPN in it, if you could choose to take ESPN out, there are only so many of those other channels that people would want in the current cable bundle. And if they could get some of those a la carte, like they can now with HBO Now or CBS Interactive, all of a sudden it becomes less and less worthwhile to pay the large amounts of money for even the basic cable packages.
Well, and I think that we're seeing also a discussion about breaking out of traditional broadcasting and actually going. There was an internet content topic. I mean, it's OTT, but I think there's some conversation that it's not. And these people are talking about that they can create and program for niche. I know one of the guys had a channel. He had Sarah Palin was his big thing, and then the other guy had the chef who had gotten kind of kicked off of TV. Can't remember her name. Paula Dean. And they are talking about, but they're also talking about this is an opportunity for engagement by not only content creators, but by talent, or a talent brand, that they can connect and say, all right, we're here. And as long as and this was the big discussion, was as long as this is organic and consistent content, meaning you have to broadcast regularly and at a dependable time, not necessarily time, but I think regular intervals, once a day. And I heard someone on Periscope say this morning that you really should be doing it once a day, because then you are trying to reach that consistency. And I think the organic is right. And they made a big comment about, for broadcast, the moment you kind of jump the shark or you become inorganic, you start trying to sponsor. They talked about Fred, who was a big YouTube star, and then when he made it big, he stepped off and he just jumped out of YouTube, and he did a couple projects and a couple things that didn't go really well for him, and then he tried to return to YouTube, and it was dead. He couldn't crickets. So I think that this organic element is also very important. It's consistent, organic. And I also go for, and Periscope to that point, is engagement. If you're not engaging your audience, if you're not being there and engaging and having a bi-directional conversation, then I think your time has come. You're a dinosaur and you're dying.
And one of the main benefits of OTT content is you can have that kind of interaction and engagement. And what's also interesting, and I learned this at a different session yesterday, YouTube gives added credence in the algorithm if you have engagement if you engage in YouTube comments and liking and sharing content. So they're watching what the creators are doing to interact with their audience, and if they're taking part in it, they'll make it so more people see a video organically, and just trying to create that incentive structure. But at the same point, what's also fascinating to me is that it's YouTube, as incredible as it is, a big part of where it's such a pool of talent right now, where all of the big platforms are chasing YouTube stars and trying to hire them away from YouTube, is that they have these vast communities. And these communities have been growing with some of these YouTube stars for 7 years, where if you've been following an individual's content or an organization's content or what have you for 7 years, that's a big commitment. And there isn't another platform that has that breadth of experience, because just no one else but YouTube has really been built up for over that period of time. And as Facebook video and Tumblr video, etc., keep getting off the ground, they're at a beginning point, but these communities have a long way to go.
Well, I think that's interesting, again, towards the engagement. I mean, certain things have value because they have the audience there, they have the audience built in. That's certainly for network, ABC, CBS, NBC, Fox, PBS. These places have a built-in audience. They're going to, they can almost fall off the truck easily, and as long as it's not bad. They're taking a lot of competition these days, but they have the content. They have the audience. They know that they can create instantaneous reach. But I think I see this trend now towards owning your audience, building a following, and in the content, and realizing that if you can walk in the door with a large following, or you can walk in the door with a knife edge following. Look, 5,000 of the right people might get you a deal if you have someone willing to pay to reach that 5,000 people. Because candidly, you could do a Super Bowl ad and reach a boatload of people, but you may only have cared about a small subset of that.
So Jonah Peretti of BuzzFeed recently wrote about Twitter and the real value of Twitter, where he said, Twitter is this specialized audience of many influencers, people who use it as a news feed, essentially, a news bulletin. And what's happening that they're seeing is that there's a cascade of when they'll be a piece of content posted on Twitter, influencers will find that content on Twitter and then post it to their Facebook feed. And from Facebook is where you reach the masses, because Facebook's algorithm makes it so easy it brings content to you right as you want it, as you're flipping through on your phone. Whereas Twitter, what was best about Twitter is that you can very carefully curate your own content, but at the same point, Facebook makes it easy for the masses of people who don't want to do that on their own to just have it presented to themselves. So it kind of starts from Twitter. If you can really reach the right people on Twitter, you can reach the masses from there as it gets to these other platforms.
Well, and I think it's interesting because Facebook now instantly starts playing that video if you do it correctly, the moment it's in the feed, they're getting a lot more views. Now, how many of those views actually stick past 3 seconds? But I think they have a lot better opportunity because you automatically are going to see that first couple seconds in that video. But I agree that, Twitter becomes I like to say Facebook are the people you know. These are the people that you have relationships with already. And Twitter is the relationships that you don't. These are the relationships you're building. It's your outer network of people, and it's your chance to build in or a wider mass. I mean, remember, Facebook's still capping, I think, on a page 5,000 or something. There's a cap at how many people can actually be true followers, and now they've made a secondary method of doing that. But I think, again, it all goes back to how do we correctly enforce engagement and make sure that you're actually interacting with these people, and that's the magic that's sort of going down, and that. Let's talk about for a second, just because we're on it. But Periscope, it's been mentioned a couple times. I got to be honest that it's been kind of poo-pooed the moment that it comes up in a panel. It's sort of acknowledged that it exists. No one's willing to totally say that it's irrelevant, but they're not saying it, but they're thinking it. Clearly is my impression of what every time the conversation comes up about Periscope here. And of course, my argument always has been and I was here 10 years ago when YouTube launched, just within 6 months of whether it was spring or fall, and YouTube was just as easily poo-pooed as being nothing. Mm-hmm. And I'm wondering whether, obviously Periscope and Meerkat have a long way to go, but what are your thoughts about where this technology is going?
And I think there's huge potential for live streaming in general, Periscope in particular, and I think you also have to look at it in the context of the last few years, even of other live streaming services that have gotten off the ground. I was very involved with Occupy Wall Street, and that movement just would not have achieved any sort of attention if it hadn't been for live streaming. And at the time, services like Ustream or Livestream were very valuable, but since then, both of them have kind of shown their limitations. A live stream has become much more of a service for big paying clients, where it costs over at least the bottom level $500 a month just to have any access to their services, whereas Ustream is very clunky. They're starting to charge much more now if you want to take a Ustream and embed it on a different website, etc. And frankly, I found Ustream's just platform to be not very tenable. They make it very easy to delete files while you're streaming. Like if there's while I'm walking around with an iPad doing a live stream, there's a little pop-up that comes up that says, do you want to archive this or delete it, right next to the share buttons.
Right.
Even just that kind of interface.
User interface issue.
It just, it's a problem, and it's amazed me that they were still having these kind of issues this many years in. And I think the magic of Periscope in particular, where it's also beaten out Meerkat so quickly after its big jump after South by Southwest, is that Periscope is native within Twitter. And on Ustream, I found that there was an extremely limited community of people on Ustream who are following just different live streams on Ustream, where the people that really would watch my Ustream videos came from Twitter. And it just doesn't make sense that you would leave Twitter to another platform to watch that doesn't have a great platform that's not so much better, versus just staying within that native Twitter experience. And real-time tweets coming with real-time video, I think, makes perfect sense. And Twitter is really hitching its wagon to video in general with TV, broadcast, movie deals, and I think it's really exciting, and we're just beginning to see services like Periscope, what they're able to do now, and it's really fun to imagine where it's going to go.
Well, I think that's all very to the point. I think low friction. I think look, YouTube in its day when it launched, there was no way to get your video on the net easily, and here was this pretty much low friction. Shoot it, upload it, it's there. And so, and then, community followed and all of that. Here, again, I can go, we've done this with nothing. We're just like sitting here by the pool. Literally, it's, we're in the middle of a conference at a hotel, and literally we're able to do this with no effort. And I think that low friction, high, and even to getting our followers, and we have no one now watching on the app, but we probably have watchers on the web, and people will watch, potentially, although the replay now can only be seen if you have the app. And so, that's a factor, and I think they're doing that intentionally to build app, things. But I think that'll change, and of course I can download this and then post it to YouTube, so we can have our own replay past this. But I think it's really interesting. I think there'll be a lot of interesting rights issues with Periscope. Again, I was talking with an attorney last night, and he's like, well, there's secondary. If there was music playing in our background right now, we're not really covered under the live broadcast aspects because we're not really broadcasters under the definition of the copyright code. But if someone did a takedown notice, by the time they could get it all processed, it would be down off of at least Periscope. So I think it becomes interesting how this will evolve the technology and make things change. And I think the fact that it just becomes easier to engage and to get out and even to talk with people is makes this a sea change type technology if it can continue to hold I think it'll really go very far.
Yeah, and everybody's a producer now. If you post on Facebook, you're a producer, and via text and photos, like anybody that's a digital native is used to that now. And incorporating video into the equation is, I think people are getting more comfortable with it. They're making videos of their kids, they're making videos of that funny thing they see with street theater or whatnot. And more, as people build up their audiences, as people watch their videos that they post on Facebook or Twitter or what have you, people are learning these skills and growing more and more comfortable with it. And live streaming is the next frontier. It makes sense. If you're at a great thing and you want to share it with your friends and followers, it's just a couple clicks on your phone and you're there. And it's really just a beginning thing. And I think the broadcast networks, much as other OTT providers, would do well to really jump ahead of the curve, because that's where the market is going, that's where individuals are going, and it's going to be a bold new future.
Cool. Well, I want to thank you for taking time away from the conference, coming out and joining me to do this. I actually tweeted about doing this, and you were nice enough to jump in and meet up with me so that we could do this. I want to thank everyone. We're coming to you from Digital Hollywood here in Marina Del Rey at the Ritz, and we'll be tweeting out stuff. You can follow us both. Our Twitter identities are in the title, and I'll probably post this on YouTube or somewhere else so that past the 24 hours you can find this. So thank you guys very much, and we'll be talking to you.